So it's been 3 months since we lost Autumn, and this is my update on how it's going with grief and life. Um, it's still very tough to get through uh, each day, and it becomes tough in different ways, as I'll explain. Um, One of the things now is, most people around us is just kind of like moved on. It's just back to business as normal. Um, and when people ask you, like, how you are and stuff like that, now it's just, we just tell people like that we're okay, we're all right, because it just saves just like awkward conversations. Because if you just say that we're struggling, we're just trying to get through days without feeling distraught. And you know if you say that to people, they're going to try and help, which is really nice, but there's nothing really that they can do, because there's nothing that we can do. And it's always on your emotions, and that in and of itself is just really draining. We're always exhausted and impatient. Lots of things before that would be easy to deal with just grates us. Having to deal with China life, or uh, you know any sort of like inconvenience, or just like bureaucracy or whatever. It's just so hard to deal with. You just don't have the capability. You just, I can't do it. I can't do it. And it takes like a whole like afternoon or morning or day even to try and bring up the energy to get even the simplest things done. One of the things that we've found as well is we have to be careful of triggers. I know that sounds strange, but it was recently Mother's Day, and it was recently Fanny's birthday, and it was really hard. It's especially hard for Fanny, because it just brings it all up all over again, of what happened, because those are special days that you would be sharing with her, that you aren't, and it's just a reminder. And even when watching like TV shows and movies and listening to songs, if it's emotional or about loss or anything like that, like it just really gets to you. You can't help it, and it overwhelms you and brings it all back again. Like I don't normally get super emotional when watching movies and stuff like that. I do, but like it's completely different here. Like I watched Planes, Trains and Automobiles not so long ago, a couple of weeks back. And if you know the story, it's about this guy who happens to be called Neil, played by Steve Martin, that's trying to get home for Thanksgiving, and it's a bit of a shit show trying to get home. And he comes across this character played by John Candy, who's just like going through life, and he's just like a messy person, a bit trashy or whatever, and this Neil gives him a hard time. And towards the end of the movie, I'm just going to spoil it, but he finds out, because this other person talks about his wife a lot, and how great she was. And then towards the end of the movie, Neil realized that that's why he wasn't going home for Thanksgiving, was because he lost his wife. And oh man, it really got to me. I was in floods of tears just watching that, because it was so heartbreaking. And like you just really empathize with how difficult that is. Even now, just thinking about it makes me a bit teary-eyed. But like, one of the things with this is you're just an exposed nerve, and everything feels so raw, and I feel just so vulnerable. Like, if someone would push me, I would fall just easily. Like, I think it's difficult for guys in a way, in that guys are supposed to kind of front a little bit more and show strength, and be solid or whatever, and you can't do that. And like, I feel so weak, and like, we both try and get our heads down, and we're very understanding of each other, but for myself, I don't have the strength really to front anymore. You just feel so raw all the time, and I hate it so much that like, it almost feels like I'm cowering from the world, because I don't want to be hurt anymore. So, I mentioned before, and I'm going to restate it again, that it's, we lost her, but we lost everything else. We lost the plans for our future, for what we were doing in the present. Like, with the teaching now, it's so taxing, and like, I don't have that same capacity anymore. I don't know if it'll come back, but it's so draining, and exhausting, and we're just trying to get through the school year right now. But we've decided that we're going to head out of China, because losing someone is horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, even my worst enemies. It's not something I hope any of you, if you watch this, ever encounter, because losing a child, it's worse than you possibly can imagine. And the thing is, we're in China, and it's not our country, and it's very different and taxing. There's lots of aspects of just dealing with China life that you'll know if you've lived in a foreign country. It can be different, like the communication barrier, the cultural barrier. Like the cultural barrier here, I get stared at a lot because I'm the white guy. That's not what I want when I'm leaving the hospital to go back home to pick up some stuff after what happened. But like, that's what I got. That's what I mean. When you're exposed, especially here as well, it's it adds layers, and a lot of Chinese people are very well-meaning, and will say, well, like, you can try again or whatever, but it's, we're not talking about, I didn't burn toast. I can't just put another slice of bread in there. It just doesn't come along with much tact, or I understand it's well-meaning, but like, at this point, I just don't want to be understanding. I just want to be in a place where I feel safer, I guess. and dealing with all the documents and bureaucracy is, you know, exhausting at the best of times. But right now, oh, it's such a grind. It's such a grind. But, you know, and the thing is that's not just it. You know, like we get through this next couple of months to the end of our contract, and then we're going to leave China. But, you know, like we can't go back to England because with the spousal visa requirements, there's a financial requirement that we can't meet right now, especially with what's happened. So we're going to have to go back to Canada, where they don't have that spousal visa requirement, financial requirement. But, you know, there are still other aspects that are required. And, you know, like, we want to apply from within Canada to get me a spousal visa. But, you know, that's the thing as well. There's no guaranteed, you know, because I'm going to have to go there on a visitor visa. You know, with the money that we have, with, you know, Fanny not having, you know, a job or her own lease back there, it kind of leaves us, you know, a big, you know, it's not a big chance, but there's a possibility that, you know, I might just be, they might just say at the border, no, sorry, we can't just let you in for, you know, X amount of time until you get your spousal visa. So, you know, it's just a constant torture, really, of what's happening right now, and just dealing with China, then, you know, not knowing what's going to happen with the future, and it's just starting again, really. Like, you know, if we're not going to continue doing teaching, we're going to have to go back to doing other different stuff, and then, you know, like retraining or whatever. You know, the future's so uncertain, but it just seems like it's so much work, and that's got to be done, but you're doing it when you're at your lowest point. So when I say it's tough because of those reasons, because of all that, of the loss, because of daily China life, because of, you know, what the future brings and the work that's potentially going to be there, that's going to be tasking at best of times. It's all bundled together, and that's just life right now. So basically, we're just holding on to each other, hoping that the future is going to be better, and doing what we can when we feel up to it to make it better for ourselves. But we're still here, and we're still carrying on for each other. And, you know, if we keep doing this, then hopefully it'll work out.